Welcome to Miracles in the Madness, where faith meets the chaos. I'm your host, Ashton, and together we'll explore stories, Bible truths, and encouragement for women living in the beautiful, messy life God has called them to. Each week, we'll dive into real-life testimonies, practical encouragement, and Bible insights to help you walk faithfully through the everyday madness. Come join me. Welcome back to Miracles in the Madness. I am your host, Ashton, and today I want to talk with you a little bit about, this parenting journey we're on and how it kind of works. So I'm going to start with prayer, and then I want to read a little bit to you from John 3, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. So let's get started. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for today, and we thank you so much for this time together. God, I pray that the person listening to this would continue to grow in their relationship with you, and that you would continue to inspire them and bless them, and that they would start to see in every area of their life that you are always there and always showing up for them. God, I pray that you would bless them immensely. Show them your great power and your grace in this time that they're experiencing, whether it's good times or bad times. God, let you and your glory and your grace be seen in it all. God, I thank you so much for them listening to this podcast, and I pray that you would help me to communicate clearly, and that the message that I'm sharing with my listeners today, that it would be whatever you're trying to get out in the world, God. So I just thank you so much, and I love you so much, and it's in your Son, Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Okay, so I am reading starting at John 3, 25, and I'm in the Christian Standard Bible, which is the CSB. I typically use an NLT, but this Bible is actually my study Bible, and so I've been gravitating a little bit more towards it to get a little deeper. But I encourage you to read it in whatever translation that you're used to reading it in. I think the message is going to be the same. So, without further explanation, we'll get started. Then a dispute arose between John's disciples and a Jew about purification. So they came to John and told him, "Rabbi, the one that you testified about and who was with you across the Jordan is baptizing, and everyone is going to him." John responded, "No one can receive anything unless it has been given to him from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, 'I am not the Messiah, but I have been sent ahead of him.' He who has the bride is the groom, but the groom's friend who stands by and listens for him rejoices greatly at the groom's voice. So this joy of mine is complete. He must increase, but I must decrease. The one who comes from above is above all, and the one who is from the earth is earthly and speaks in earthly terms. The one who comes from heaven is above all. He testifies to what he has seen and heard, and yet no one accepts his testimony. The one who has accepted his testimony has affirmed that God is true. For the one whom God sent speaks God's words, since he gives the Spirit without measure. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into his hands. The one who believes in the Son has eternal life, but the one who rejects the Son will not see life. Instead, the wrath of God remains on him." So I'm going to back up a little bit, just in case you're like me and sometimes struggle to quite understand the way that the Bible reads. Basically, what's happening is John the Baptist's followers are noticing, they're in the same kind of river area that Jesus and his followers are in, and both John and Jesus are baptizing their followers at the same time. And some of John's followers said, well, basically, like, we're asking, are you jealous, or why is he also baptizing people in his name, or in, it was a question of Um, are you upset because people are leaving your kind of following to go follow Jesus? And John's response was, no, this is how it's supposed to happen. I'm just here to usher him in. And he uses this illustration of a, best man at a wedding, how, they walk in before the groom and they prepare the way for the groom, and then they stand along on the side and cheer for the groom. They're proud and happy for him. And that's their role. And so that's what John is saying here. He says, he must increase, but I must decrease. When I think about this in the context of my life, I will be the first to say it. Well, maybe not the first, but I will definitely be the loudest to say it and acknowledge it, that sometimes pride absolutely does go with before a fall. I can be very prideful. I'm competitive, and I try to do my very best work all the time. And in my parenting, sometimes it looks like trying to do it differently than other people, or wondering why other people do it a certain way. And I can judge sometimes in that way. And I've gotten better, but it's just, I think, a natural tendency as humans to compare ourselves or compare things with each other. And so when I think about this whole situation as a parent, we as adults have experienced childhood. We have grown through the teenage years. We've figured our lives out, or started to try to figure our lives out as young adults. And theoretically, by the time we start having children, like in a perfect world, by the time we start having children, we are at a point where, no, we don't have it all figured out, because I don't think on this side of heaven we ever will. But we feel a lot more confident in ourselves, and maybe we're not always looking for the adult in the room, realizing that we are the adult in the room, And so having grown through all of those experiences and grown through the questioning and challenging times of young adulthood, it sets us up to be in a position to share that same information with our children. And what's interesting is then when our children are born, their whole cycle starts over. And we're about as far as we could be from remembering exactly what it was like to grow up as a child. And I think God did that on purpose, because usually by the time we're having children, it's so far from the time that we were children. Like, obviously we're not in the same generation even. And so even the times change so much that it wouldn't really matter how much we remembered from our childhood and what it was like to grow up a certain way, because a lot of times the world around us has changed so much that it wouldn't maybe work the same way, or it would be much harder to try to parent in that way. My parents talk about how growing up, the rule was, the street lights went out, that meant it was time to go home, or street lights came on, it was time to go home, or if the sun was starting to go down, it was time to go home. Or my dad grew up on a farm, you heard the dinner bell, you had to go running. And so there was like a whole lot less parental supervision in that time. Whereas like I think about that now, and my dad was running around with his siblings all over the farm at age, like my son and my daughter are probably, by the time my dad was 3, he was running around the farm with his brothers and sisters without like strong parental supervision. And I don't think that was uncommon for even, more city kids, even at that time. Maybe the mom would be sitting at the playground or somewhere in the vicinity, and you and your siblings could go run and play, like, or maybe you were just playing in your backyard without supervision. Either way, parents maybe didn't feel that they needed to be quite on top of things as we do now. But the world has changed so much that I feel like I along with a lot of parents probably don't necessarily like the idea of our young children being left to their own devices. I think there's just too many scary things that they can get a hold of or that can get a hold of them. So anyway, as I think about this, then we're in this phase where we think we might have adulthood figured out. And then we have this newborn baby. And there are a few times in my life that I can remember feeling quite as unsure as when I had the newborn. I was probably more confident than I should have been because my sister and I are 11 years apart, and she's my only sibling. So by the time my sister was born, no, I wasn't probably old enough to be raising a child, and I wasn't raising her. But in a lot of ways, I'm kind of like another parent to my sister. I learned a whole lot about that newborn phase, and I learned a whole lot about just babies in general at a pretty young age. Hey there! I wanted to take just a second to invite you to check out my shop and recommendations page over at ashtonkiever.com. It's filled with faith-based resources to help you grow in courage, trust, and peace right in the middle of your motherhood journey. From printables and coloring book pages that you can do with your kids to my favorite books and tools that help me stay grounded when life feels chaotic. Whether you need a quiet moment with God or a new way to connect with your family around faith, there's something waiting for you there. You can find it all at ashtonkiever.com/shop, or just click the link in today's show notes. So I was pretty confident I knew how to take care of a newborn. I didn't, and I learned a whole lot. My son he wasn't really colicky, but we did end up finding out he was very, very gassy. And so if we couldn't get him to give us a really good burp after any bottle or meal, we could expect that in about 30 minutes, maybe an hour, he would be screaming. And I remember this one night in particular, Zach and I were we were so exhausted. I don't even remember how old Bennett was at that point. But he was old. He was maybe 2 or 3 weeks old. And we were walking around. We were patting him. We were rocking him. We were singing to him. We were trying to feed him. And obviously his tummy hurt, so he wouldn't eat. His diaper was dry, and we just felt like we had tried everything. And then I remembered that someone had given us some gripe water. I will link the specific brand that we use in the show notes. It was one of the most amazing products. It's still, to this day, every time I have a newborn, the first thing I make sure I have in my house within the first 2 weeks of having a baby is gripe water, because with Bennett, it was a game changer. We had basically reached the end of our rope. And I'm sure I was texting or calling people that had babies before me. So again, this is that kind of cycle, right? It's that ushering in. So we were calling our best men who went before us to usher in the way for our family to then go through this, right? So we're going... I'm calling around, and somebody told me to use the gripe water, and we gave it to him. And I can't describe the sound so much, but you literally heard the air bubble that was in his very tight little tummy. You could hear it move, and within a second or two, he let out a man-sized burp from like a 2 or 3 week old baby. And it was almost as if that was it. Like he burped it, and then he just, like he went straight to sleep, and we laid him down, and that was it. That was all it was. He just needed to burp so bad. He needed to let that air out so bad. And so I tell you this whole story because I didn't know anything about gassy babies before I had a baby. But I do now. I know a lot about gassy babies, actually. In fact, we had to, when we were burping Bennett, we bounced him on our knee and we had to like hold his head real firm in our hands and bounce him on our knees. So many people were like, "You're going to give that baby shaking baby syndrome." I said, "No, we're not," because this is just one of the ways that we were taught we could burp him. And it was like it bounced the bubble in his, like you could hear that bubble in his tummy bouncing when we would do that, and it would eventually hit his diaphragm the right way and come up and out, and he would burp like a man again. Um, but it was so interesting to learn some of these things because we had to learn things that my parents didn't learn, whether they needed to or not. We were burping him in a way that they never burped us. And they never really told us we were wrong, but we definitely got some funny looks for a while for a few different things that we did with our kids. But the point is, we as parents are sent ahead of our children to learn and to grow. And then when we have our children, it sort of begins that period of ushering them in. It begins that period of us having to decrease while they increase. Now, there's a book that my husband and I read called Parenting, Getting It Right. And that title turns a lot of people off. Anytime I've told somebody about this book, they give me a weird look when I say it. I'm like, listen, it's not judgy. There's specific it that they're connecting in this title is the it that they want for to achieve with their children is how they parented them from the beginning. So their it was, we want to have a relationship with our children where they want to come see us even when they don't have to anymore. They want to hang out with us and be friends with us even when they don't have to anymore. And that's really what Zach and I want as well. And we're actually about to probably revisit this specific book, but it breaks it down into about 4 different like stages of parenting. So the 0 to 5 kind of range, you are like, it's like the discipline phase. Like you have to show your kids that there are consequences to their actions. And then from like 5 to, I don't know, maybe 10, I think they said, that time frame, maybe it was like 7 or 8. That time frame, you are teaching. So you're backing off on the discipline a little bit more and teaching your children the things they need to know to grow into productive human beings and successful human beings. And then the next phase is coaching. So you're maybe backing off on this is how you do it step by step, and you're kind of letting them start to try things and grow and learn a little bit more. And you are kind of supporting them and coaching them through it. And then the last stage is I believe the friendship phase. And so maybe I have the time frame wrong, but I know for sure 0 to 5 is the discipline phase. And then from about 5 or 6 through like early teen years, like 13 or so, that's kind of the teaching. And then kind of from the 13, 14, you're coaching until they are grown and out of your house kind of phase, where you get to just try to, you can kind of maintain a friendship with them. But the reason I say all of that is because in that exact scenario, you start out as you are definitely the most, right? And they're the least. And as they kind of grow, you as a parent have to decrease for them to increase, for them to grow into the people they need to become for God's kingdom. And they then can maybe continue the cycle if you get to have grandchildren where they have to increase so that they can decrease as well. It just really, I don't know, it hit me a certain kind of way, but I think also in terms of your goals and your aspirations. You can't force it into existence. You can't will something to happen because it's all on you. Because the reality is, if you're doing it for the glory of God, if you're doing it unto the Lord, you must decrease so that He can increase. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Well, you have to acknowledge the things that you can't do without Him, which is really anything. But God can grow any seed He wants. Our job is just to be planting them. He'll water any seed that is in accordance with His will. So when we try to be strong and we try to do all of the things on our own, that's almost like putting a seed in the ground and saying, grow, grow, and expecting it to just, because of sheer will and yelling at it, that it's going to just grow. Something else that is said in here is no one can receive anything unless it's been given to him from heaven. So in the same way, like I just explained this, but in that same way, you will receive the blessing from heaven if and when it is in accordance with God's will. So no amount of control, no amount of forcing things to happen is going to make anything happen. It's not going to make your dream happen. And this is me also talking to myself right now. I have wanted my whole life, at least my whole life as a parent, I have really wanted to stay home with my children. I've wanted to love on them from home, and I wanted to homeschool and all of those things. But currently in the season we're in, it's just not possible. And I keep praying for it to become possible. God, please let us get out of this debt, or help us to make this or that happen so that we can finally make this move. And I think some of it is God is just trying to teach me who I need to be. And I'll tell you, some of the things that I need to learn are a little bit of discipline, self-control. I need to find patience, be better at getting grace, lean into my kindness. I mean, you name any fruit, and I'm sure I need to be growing in that area. And I just think that sometimes we're so busy focusing on the thing that we want heaven to gift us with that we're not thinking about the kind of person we need to be able to honor that gift well. And maybe I'm talking to myself right now. I mean, I'm definitely talking to myself right now. I'm in a room by myself. But I mean, maybe this isn't something that resonates with you, but it certainly is something that resonates with me. And I wish away my parenting journey all the time. I love my kids. I love the phases that we've gone through and are in. But sometimes parenting is super hard. This is no shock to anybody in the room or anybody who's listening about parenting. Like, sometimes it is the hardest thing that I ever hope to accomplish, because I don't know how to do something that I've never done before. And every day I'm parenting a 5-year-old, a 5-year and 11 months and 2 days, and then the next day, 3 days, like I'm parenting a kid who is getting older every single day. And every single day that kid isn't a kid I've never parented before, especially at this age. So I give myself grace as I go through these times, but like, we are not made, we cannot force the blessing that we hope to receive in the same way that we cannot expect our 5-year-old to become a responsible 8-year-old in one night. And people keep saying, well, it gets better, because we're in a hard season right now. We got a lot of young kids. It gets better, and I'm sure it totally does. And there are some days that I'm already wishing for the better. But then on the same day, it seems like before bed, I'm giving them hugs and kisses, and they say something, and I'm just thinking to myself, 2 months ago, you didn't even know that word. I miss the kid who didn't know that word, because you're never going to get that kid back. That kid's already grown past that. And it just makes me cry sometimes to think about how my son is already 5 years old. And his little baby picture comes up on my phone, and I look at it and I go, he's never going to be that small again. So sometimes I go to work and I think to myself, man, I am really missing so much. But because of how hard this parenting journey is and how easy it is for the enemy to tell us lies about ourselves and our families in these times, these really challenging parenting times, sometimes I go to work and I think, thank God I have another job. I would be a terrible stay-at-home mom because I'd lose my patience. I would this, I would that. I just need a break from my kids. But the reality is, once they all move out of my house, I'm probably going to have the rest, like the other half of my life, of a break from my kids. And I'm going to be wishing that they would be over at my house all the time. At least that's what I hear. And I know myself well enough to know that any time spent with my kids is going to be worth my time. So anyway, where in your life do you need to decrease so he can increase? Where in your life may your pride be getting in the way of your ability to let God be God and you be you? Something else that we talked about, something else that I read at the very beginning of this. The one who is from the earth is earthly and speaks in earthly terms. We are earthly. We are human. We can only dream of the heavenly things. We can only dream of the kinds of blessings that God could give us. And most of the time, the blessings that we're asking for, God can give us way more than that, and will give us way more than that when we're going to become good stewards of it. So, where in your life, what area might you need to decrease so he can increase? I can think of a few right now for me. One is absolutely parenting. 2 is running my business. Yeah. Let God be God. Let me just do as he says and be obedient. Oh. In my work life, often I think it's fair that to realize, for me to think, at least it's fair for me to think that when I am feeling disappointed or frustrated or angry or less than, or you could name any word and it probably fits, about my job or about a situation, I wonder how much time I've spent in gratitude in that topic recently. I wonder how much time I've spent coveting the grass being greener on somebody else's lawn, you know. I wonder how often I have spent thinking how frustrated I am rather than I'm so thankful that I have this job or that I have this opportunity or I don't know, food to cook. Because we all know sometimes we don't feel like making dinner when we get home. But by golly, we do have food at home and we're going to cook it. Because we're on a budget and it's better for our health. And also, thanks God for providing for us. All I'm saying is, I think if we could be a little bit more like John the Baptist and remember that for some people, we may exist on this planet simply as a way to usher them into their own journey with Christ, i.e. our kids. When we accept that role as the people who get to help them enter into their own ministry, we then get to walk in the fullness of God's blessings on our parenting ministry. Yes, it is a ministry. You are a minister to your children. Parenting is a ministry. So if you're ever at church and you're feeling like, man, I don't help out enough, I don't do this, I don't do that, maybe in this time in your life, your role is to be a good parent. Your ministry is parenting. And then maybe someday it will be something else, because I'm sure there's more than one for most of us. So anyway, let me just leave you with he says, he who has the bride is the groom. But the groom's friend who stands by and listens for him rejoices greatly at the groom's voice. So this joy of mine is complete. He must increase, but I must decrease. Your joy can be complete when you decrease. When you are less, it makes more room for Jesus, and you will feel more joy. This is also an opportunity for us to turn the coveting into gratitude. God, I'm so thankful that you provided a new car for that person. I'm sure they really needed it. God, I thank you so much that I have this house, no matter how small it is. I have a roof over my head and I'm warm at night. Let your coveting try to flip that script into feeling joy for your friend. Think about these situations as an opportunity to stand alongside someone else and just be grateful that God worked so mightily in their life, and trust in his promise that he's going to do the same for you when it aligns with his will and when the time is right. But your joy can be complete even if you must decrease. Your joy can be complete as the best man at someone's wedding. Or if you're a woman, most of my listeners probably are women, as a maid of honor in someone's wedding. Matron of honor in someone's wedding. You just get to look on and enjoy. It's a reframe. So maybe spend some time in your journal, if you have one, writing and reflecting on areas of your life that maybe you need to decrease so that God can increase. I thank you so much for listening today, and I hope that you will keep looking for the miracles in the madness. Until next week, bye. Thank you for listening to Miracles in the Madness. I hope today's episode encouraged you and reminded you that even in the chaos, God is faithful. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might need encouragement. You can also visit my blog at ashtonkeever.com for more stories, scripture, and resources to help you walk in faith every single day.